Racing your first triathlon can be both an exciting and daunting experience. There can appear to be a never-ending list of things that you need to know about simply to toe the start line and get yourself going. And whether that is the case or not, you needn't be so phased that you aren't able to get yourself ready to start your first triathlon. So, with that in mind, today I'm going to be giving you 5 tips that you might not necessarily have thought about that can help you with your first triathlon and tackle it with ease. Triathlon is a sport of 3 disciplines, no less, and with that comes a lot of equipment that you can feel pressurized into, well, needing to gather up just to be able to give a race a go. And it can be all too easy to listen to the chat of groups down at your local tri club or folk in your local training group at the pool talking about all the latest shiny bits of kit that they've bought for themselves, and then feeling like you need to be able to do the same just to be able to race a triathlon. However great the temptation is, don't fall into this trap just before you're entering your first triathlon, because with any bit of equipment or kit, the key to being comfortable with it is to use it regularly. Now, I know this might sound very simple, but it is true. So the last thing that you actually want to do to yourself is change things up just before you're entering that first triathlon and start using something that is entirely new or alien to you. And there are a few culprits that stand out in my mind, and key to those are bits of equipment and kit. The first of those are trainers. Now, it might sound like a really good idea to get yourself some brand new trainers for your first foray into racing a triathlon because, well, nice new trainers will be comfy, right? Well, maybe, but only after you've bedded them in after a few uses. Now, I have seen with first-hand experience many poor souls with very bloody red shoes at the ends of triathlon, and you do not want to end up in that position. Secondly is making sure that your race kit fits you nice and adequately. Now, there are a number of options out there, starting with a traditional tri-suit. Now, this might be one that comes with full sleeves, we see these quite popular these days, or one that just has no sleeves cut off at the shoulder. You could then also have a 2-piece option where you have a pair of shorts and a separate tri-top. Again, that could be sleeved or sleeveless. Now, with all of these options, there is the potential for awkward chafing and rubbing if you're not sure of how they fit. So it makes perfect sense to wear them in the pool first, go out for a run, even maybe try them for a bike too, just so that you know that you're going to get no nasty surprises on race day. For the vast majority of us, taking part in a triathlon means that we are going to be in the open water environment, and by extension to that, that will mean that we need to wear a wetsuit in the water, unless of course you are lucky enough to live in tropical conditions and know that you're going to be swimming in nice warm and balmy waters. So I've got a couple quick tips here for helping with both putting your wetsuit on and taking it off. So this first tip, which is actually an incredibly simple one, but worth its weight in gold, is to pack a plastic bag along with your wetsuit wherever you're going with it, and use that to help put your arms and legs through the wetsuit when you're getting into it, because it can be really awkward to get in through the tight ankles and through the tight wrist spaces in the wetsuit. So if you put the plastic bag over your hands or over your feet too, and then step into or push through the wetsuit with that plastic bag, it just makes things slide on far easier, and you're not gonna risk the chances of ruining your wetsuit by putting a hole in the neoprene. Now, I learned this the hard way many years ago by rushing to try and get a wetsuit on and just push my arm through, and before I knew it, it was a great big hole along one of the seams in the neoprene. So that's a tip for helping get the wetsuit on, but there's also a good tip for helping get your wetsuit off, and that's to use some baby oil, maybe some petroleum jelly as well, or Vaseline is another name for it, to stop you getting some nasty chafes and rubs in all the places that you're going to be using the wetsuit in the water. Now, notably, the neck is a really good place that I always add some Vaseline or petroleum jelly. You can use baby oil too. That just stops when you're breathing, getting a nasty rub on either side you're breathing to. Other good places to add some baby oil or Vaseline on is around your wrists and around your ankles too, because that means when you come to pulling the wetsuit off in transition, it helps the wetsuit just come off that bit easier too. Now, as I said at the beginning, it is very easy to be daunted by an awful lot of the kit associated with racing a triathlon, and at the top of that list is most certainly the bikes that we can ride. Walk through any transition area and, quite frankly, the array of shiny carbon bling on display can be, well, nothing short of overwhelming. However, I'm here to assure you that you really don't need something like this simply to be able to take part in your first triathlon. Now, we have said this countless times here on the channel, and although we are extremely lucky to get access to really top-end bikes ourselves, if of course you've got one, that's great, but you definitely don't need one. Essentially, all you need is a good, safe bike in working order with brakes that are fine, tires that are fine, and of course a bike that fits you. And if that might be a mountain bike or whether it be a commuter bike, essentially whatever you have at home, in the garage or outside is going to be perfectly fine. Essentially, nothing is off limits. Regardless of the length of triathlon that you're embarking upon, be that a sprint distance triathlon or a full distance Ironman, one of the things that you mustn't overlook, or worst even forget, is to keep yourself well fueled and hydrated with a constant trickle of calories coming in all of the time. For many doing their first triathlon, the thought of having to open and negotiate using energy gels, then of course eating the things, can seem, well, pretty awkward and cumbersome. Then of course you've got to coincide that with the thought of concentrate on racing itself too. So, many years ago, I was given a really good, useful nugget of information from a racing buddy, which was to take those gels and then empty them into a water bottle, because then you can dilute that down with some water, and all you have to do to worry about getting your much needed calories is sip regularly from your water bottle, as you would usually do anyway. I would of course suggest having this water bottle with your gel mix coinciding with another water bottle, say a regular water bottle just with water, or maybe some energy mix in there too. And a final point to help with your nutrition on course is to think about using some sort of timer, maybe on your watch. You can set these to whatever you want. I would suggest something like a 15-minute bleep, because that means that with all the excitement of getting caught up with racing, you're hopefully never going to forget to regularly take on board some hydration, or of course eat as well. And that way you're going to regularly keep that trickle of calories coming in. Given you've probably watched cycling on the TV and seen groups of big packs riding along in close proximity to one another, you could be forgiven for thinking that this is what you're allowed to do in a triathlon too. However, this isn't allowed, and this is referred to as drafting, where in effect you can get a slipstream effect from riding close behind the rider in front. Now, in almost all forms of triathlon, this is not allowed. The only exception being in ITU racing, where athletes race over the Olympic distance and they are all trying to get themselves to the Olympic Games every 4 years. Essentially, you have to think about every rider out on a triathlon course as being in an imaginary box, and that box will be approximately 2 meters wide and 10 meters in length, and no other rider is allowed to enter into that box. So, should you want to pass a triathlete who is in front of you, you need to be mindful not to get too close behind them, because that will be construed as drafting and you'll be getting a penalty, very frustrating one, from the race referee, and those penalties are usually in the region of 5 minutes long, and you have to stop on course at the next available penalty tent to take it. Needless to say, there are all sorts of things that taking part in your first triathlon can, well, flag up as being potentially unnerving and a little bit worrisome, but hopefully these tips that I've just chatted through with you now can help some way towards making that first time racing process much simpler. Now, hopefully you've enjoyed this video, so please hit that thumb up like button, and do find the globe somewhere on screen to make sure you don't miss out on any other videos that we make here at GTN. And talking about those other videos, if you want to see one that is tips for new triathletes, well, you can find that here. And another on how many hours a week should I train for a triathlon? Well, that one is here.